Hello fellers and welcome back to Noob's Workshop. Today we're going to be soldering. Now the first thing we have to do before everything else is clean off our hands, make sure we get all that dirt off. But anyway, onto the main point of the video. So today we will be soldering the flywheel cage to the actual motor. Now first off, I would like to state that maybe Play-Doh might have not been the best suitor to keep the flywheels in place because it kind of gets hard and it doesn't stick to filament, but whatever. I might be getting a little bit off track. Time to bring out the main component, the soldering iron. Soldering iron, let's go. Okay, enough of this voiceover madness. I'm actually going to be explaining what we're doing today. So we're going to be connecting the black and red wires across the two motors as so. Okay, now I'm going to explain exactly what we're going to do. Basically, if you see the two red dots, we're going to be connecting one end of each wire from there. Now, what is so important about the wires being attached is that if they are wrong, when the dart goes through the flywheels, it'll actually go back towards the gun, which is not good at all. Moving on, that is mostly what we are going to be doing today, but we will also be attaching the motors to the main component of the gun. Now all that's left is to press the on button on the soldering iron and fire it up. This is awkward. It's supposed to be turning on. What's going on? Yeah, I spent like 30 minutes trying to fix the soldering iron. I tried switching the power cords and everything. At some point I thought it was broken. But either way, I kept pushing forward, and then I thought to myself at some point, noob, have you even checked the soldering iron itself? And that's when it hit me. You're telling me I spent over 30 minutes and the entire thing just wasn't turned on the entire time? Moving on, welcome to Noob's soldering site or something. The first act in soldering is to align the wire by using the clipper so it stays on. But don't worry, because I am a professional in the art of making this wire stay. Watch me get this first try. Maybe next try. Anyway, I did get the wire clipped off camera, but now it's time for the fun part. As you can see, the soldering iron at 732 degrees and it's ready to go. Now, how soldering works is basically that the tip of that metal rod is very hot, and it basically melts the metal onto the wire that makes it stay. It's basically just a metal hot glue gun. Well, I finished soldering that part. Now it's time for the real test. If I have to shake this to make sure it stays in place, and if it doesn't, then oh well. By some miracle, I actually got the wire to stay in the first try, but now I have to get the other end. Now, when I cut the wire in the last video, I might have misinterpreted the wire length a bit, so I'm gonna have to go fix that right now. I had made a simple fix for the wire by bending it a little. Now it's time to solder the other end. And conveniently, the bending of the wire actually made it stay completely in place. Now, soldering is actually a very dangerous hobby, and it can act because the little bits of solder can go off and burn you. Thankfully, that only happened to me a few times. After finishing up the wire, the only test it had left was the wiggle test. And with that makes us 2 for 2 with the soldering. Now I did go ahead and connect the black wire off camera, because looking at this length of the video, it's going to take a while. But anyway, time for another time lapse. Did you know that metal is actually not flammable? Yeah, me too. Well, after connecting that wire, it's time for yet another wiggle test, and I don't even care anymore, I'm not. Yeah, and the other video of me soldering that together got corrupted, but hey, we still have this part. Now all that is left is to test it with a battery. Now, the one I have right here is the only one I could really find that would make it simple, and there's 2 little eyeball looking holes, and I'm going to solder wires to those so I can test it easier. Okay, I yet again did this off camera again, but I did eventually attach the 2 wires, and now it's time to test. The way to test it is simple. Attach the red wire to the point where the black wire is, and the other black wire to the point where the red wire is, and it should work in 3, 2, 1. See, turns out making homemade batteries is not the best decision because it's supposed to like make the motors go, but it didn't really work in this situation. So, lesson, do not make your homemade batteries unless you're good at it. Okay, so we're just gonna have to wing it for the motors, but the next course of action is to solder this white wire that was originally attached to the other motor to this new motor. Did I just say motor? You know, whatever. Well, to solder it, we're gonna need, yet again, the soldering iron.
I love the soldering iron.
Okay, I swear that's the last time I'm doing that. But anyway, now that we have the station set up, all that's left is to attach the white wire to the red part and pray. Well, you know, fellers know what time it is. It's time for yet again another time lapse. Yay! Also, it turns out some metals are flammable, but, you know, that doesn't really matter anymore.
Back to the point, this one was actually easier to attach since all I had to do was melt the previously existing solder.
If it makes this wiggle, then we're 4 for 4. Yay! Well, now the next step is to solder the black wire to the black part. Well, while I prepare the soldering iron for yet another time lapse, I will now state the previous metals that are actually flammable. Metals such as magnesium and titanium are actually flammable.
On this next clip, I am actually going to redo the solder because it wasn't the best, and on this channel, we only try for the best. Notice how I said try. Now, this time I did actually spin the wires together, so it does work now. Now, this solder actually did take quite more effort, but it still does work. And now it's time for a final wiggle test. With that, it puts us at 5 for 4. Now for the last step, I'm gonna take the flywheel cage and put it back in its spot as a placeholder for next episode. Well, and now it's securely in place. I hope you like this episode. See you on the next one. Bye!